PL-600 Microsoft Certification Power Platform Solution Architect Question and Answer, Set 5. You are working on a Microsoft Power Platform project. You deploy apps, processes, and other components to a user acceptance testing (UAT) environment. During testing, users report that processes that populate lookup columns with reference data are switched off. You need to recommend a solution to ensure the processes work as expected in all environments. What should you recommend? Option 1. Re-import the solution as managed. Option 2. Use the configuration migration tool to import all data. Re-import the solution. Option 3. Fix the processes manually in the UAT environment. Option 4. Recreate the data manually and switch the processes on. Correct answers: use the configuration migration tool to import all data. Re-import the solution. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of working with configuration and reference data. Specifically, it tests the candidate's understanding of the usage scenarios and importance of the configuration migration tool. A key benefit of using the configuration migration tool, particularly in respect to reference or configuration data, is that it will ensure row IDs are persisted with the same values in all environments. This is important if a developer or functional consultant has implemented business logic that is reliant on this data, because components such as business rules will rely on the row ID as opposed to the primary name column. Therefore, a solution architect should guide and encourage the project team to use this tool if the need arises. For the current scenario, using the configuration migration tool and re-importing the solution will fix the issue, because then the processes will have the data required to activate them successfully. Re-importing the solution as managed, although recommended for all non-development environments, will not address the underlying issue, because the reference and configuration data with the correct IDs will still be missing in the environment. Fixing the processes manually could potentially resolve the issue with the processes, but will not ensure the issue is resolved in other environments later. Recreating the data manually will not fix the issue, because the processes in question rely on the individual row ID, not the primary name column value. Recreating the rows results in different IDs to be generated for them. You are working with a bank that is undergoing digital transformation. The bank completes the initial customer discovery meeting. The project sponsor wants you to gather business process feedback from across the organization. The sponsor notices that some key users are reluctant to speak openly. You need to get these users' feedback. What should you do? Option 1. Review the user's role guide. Option 2. Send the users an anonymous survey. Option 3. Interview the users in a workshop. Correct answers: send the users an anonymous survey. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of the types of discovery meetings that are available and where different communication strategies can be applied to solicit a user's feedback in business processes. Surveys with questions that are targeted at specific roles can yield requirements and offer the chance to receive anonymous feedback. In this scenario, a survey is the best way to gain insight into the needs of users who are not comfortable speaking in front of others and who might prefer to provide feedback anonymously. A role guide will not provide feedback on users' first-hand experiences with the current process. A role guide is intended to be an internal document that covers key expectations for a specific role, the purpose of the role, and where the role fits in the organization. A workshop setting involves bringing together many stakeholders in a group setting where sharing is needed. In the scenario, the key users in question may be uncomfortable with this process and choose not to engage or share, and therefore their requirements will be missed. You are working with a banking client to build a Microsoft Power Apps app with customer greeting. The client has strict security, compliance, and reporting policies. The bank's chief technology officer requires that all Microsoft Power Platform app creation edits and publishing events be monitored and available for reporting in the Microsoft Purview compliance portal. You need to identify the appropriate monitoring capability for the client's requirements. Which capability should you use? Option 1. Column-level security. Option 2. Dataverse auditing. Option 3. Export to Excel. Option 4. Power Apps activity logging. Correct answers: Power Apps activity logging. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of the security and compliance options available for audit tracking when deploying an application. Power Apps activity logging is the process of auditing data reads and other app operations from Dataverse and having them logged to the Microsoft Purview compliance portal. This includes logging user operations such as app creation edits and publishing events. Activity logging is a setting that must be enabled, and it is designed to help meet compliance objectives like those mentioned in the scenario. Dataverse auditing is focused on logging changes that are made to customer records within a Dataverse environment. The audit logs are only stored in Dataverse and can be viewed in the Audit History tab for a single record and in the Audit Summary view for all audited operations within a single environment. Dataverse auditing by itself does not support event tracking to the Microsoft Purview compliance portal as required in the scenario. Exporting data from a model-driven app to Excel is a standard reporting capability. It is not, however, a mechanism to track and monitor events for auditing. Column-level security is specific to the privileges that are provided by a security role to operate at a table row level. Column-level security has no effect on auditing and monitoring events or connectivity to the Microsoft Purview compliance portal. You are working with a banking customer to plan and design their implementation of Microsoft Power Platform. You need to provide reference architecture documentation that aligns the implementation to Microsoft best practices. What should you provide? Option 1, Wireframe. Option 2, Fit/Gap Analysis. Option 3, Power Platform Roadmap. Option 4, Microsoft Power Platform Landing Zones. Option 5, Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats, SWOT, Analysis. Correct answers: Microsoft Power Platform Landing Zones. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of the Microsoft Power Platform solution design process and of the correct use cases for the various assets that are available. The Power Platform Landing Zones repo is a comprehensive reference architecture and design methodology package that consists of design principles organizations can use to determine their overall architecture for Microsoft Power Platform. The Power Platform Landing Zones material is aligned to the Center of Excellence Adoption Framework and Product Roadmap so a solution architect can make informed design decisions. A SWOT analysis is performed during a project to guide the project team's decisions toward a better outcome. The Power Platform Roadmap does not provide reference architecture guidance. It is a release planner site to help organizations prepare for new and upcoming features of Microsoft Power Platform. A wireframe is used to demonstrate a design or prove a proposed solution as part of the design process. Conducting a fit/gap analysis is a project activity used to identify differences between known requirements and a proposed solution. You are working with a client in the healthcare industry. The client uses Microsoft Power Platform. The client has strict security and compliance regulations. The client requires that only employees with a certain certificate have access to the medical ID numbers of contacts in the contact table. You need to identify the appropriate functionality to implement the requirement. Which Microsoft Power Platform capability should you use? Option 1, Microsoft Entra ID Security Group. Option 2, Business Unit. Option 3, Column Level Security. Option 4, Security Role. Correct answers: column level security. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of different security aspects in Microsoft Power Platform. Column level security can be used to limit access to certain columns on a table. This makes it the appropriate choice for the scenario because you could set it up to allow only certain people to have access to the content of the medical ID number column. Security roles cannot be used to limit the access to specific columns. They are used to give access to certain tables on different levels. Microsoft Entra ID security groups are used to synchronize people to Dataverse and the correct team. They cannot limit access to a certain column. Business units are used to separate rows into different silos. For example, this is used for different departments. Business units cannot limit the access to specific columns. You are working with a company to implement a solution that uses Microsoft Power Platform. You are performing a fit/gap analysis. The company adds a requirement for the implementation. You need to determine the feasibility of the requirement. What should you do? Option 1, set up a proof of concept. Option 2. Set up a demonstration of the solution that includes the requirement. Option 3. Implement an alpha version of the solution that includes the requirement. Option 4. Implement a minimum viable product (MVP) that includes the requirement. Correct answers: set up a proof of concept. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of how to determine feasibility. A proof of concept is appropriate to assess whether a function is a fit or gap. During a proof of concept, you implement the key points of a requirement to determine its feasibility. A proof of concept will be removed as soon as it is determined whether the requirement is a fit or gap. A proof of concept should never be moved to production. A demonstration usually showcases functionality that is already present. It does not determine whether something is a fit or gap. It is used to explain how something works. Implementing any part of the requirement in any form, such as an MVP or an alpha version of the solution, during a fit/gap analysis is not recommended. You are working with a customer on a Dynamics 365 implementation. You are setting the environment strategy. You need to select the environment type of the development environment. Which environment type should you use? Option 1, Development. Option 2, Production. Option 3, Sandbox. Option 4, Trial. Correct answers: Sandbox. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of the different types of environments. The development environment type should be a sandbox environment. The production environment type is intended for production. The development environment type is intended for personal use and learning. The trial environment type is intended for testing new functionality and creating POCs. You are working with a customer to define a new model-driven app that will replace an existing system. You need to determine what the current app experience looks like. What should you ask the customer for? Option 1, a process model. Option 2, a wireframe. Option 3, a data model. Option 4, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats (SWOT) analysis. Correct answers: a wireframe. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of identifying existing systems and processes and communicating how that will translate into a new solution. Using a wireframe is a great way to visually illustrate what a solution looks like using elements such as forms, dashboards, and visualizations. This will help the solution architect understand the look and feel of the existing solution and how that translates to the current business processes. Process modeling involves capturing and documenting the various activities, inputs, outputs, decisions, and interactions within a process to better understand its flow, logic, and behavior. Process modeling will not visually illustrate what the existing system looks like. Data modeling is a conceptual representation of how data is organized, stored, and accessed within a system or database. The data model will not visually illustrate what the existing solution looks like. A SWOT analysis is used to help guide project decisions toward a better outcome. You are working with a customer to finalize the requirements for their Microsoft Power Platform solution. The statement of work defines that any integrations to external systems are out of scope for the project. The customer provides a list of requirements to review. You need to identify the requirements that are correctly structured. Which 3 requirements should you select? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Option 1, as a contact center agent, I need all information entered in the system to be reflected in Dynamics 365 customer service so that I can reduce the amount of duplicate data entry required. Option 2, as a field agent, I must be able to use the application from my mobile device so that I can submit information on the customer's site. Option 3, as an executive, I must be able to use the application. Option 4, as a contact center agent, I need the ability to log details of my phone calls so that I can quickly understand the customer's previous issues. Option 5, backups of all environments must be restorable within 1 hour. Correct answers: as a field agent, I must be able to use the application from my mobile device so that I can submit information on the customer's site. As a contact center agent, I need the ability to log details of my phone calls so that I can quickly understand the customer's previous issues. Backups of all environments must be restorable within 1 hour. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of functional and non-functional requirements and the candidate's ability to ensure these requirements are structured correctly during the early stages of a project. To ensure a functional requirement can be delivered effectively, it should always include the who, the user or group of users in the organization, what they need to do, and why, the reason and value. Therefore, the following are two correctly structured requirements. As a contact center agent, I need the ability to log details of my phone calls so that I can quickly understand the customer's previous issues, and as a field agent, I must be able to use the application from my mobile device so that I can submit information on the customer's site. Non-functional requirements differ from functional requirements in that they typically relate to non-behavior aspects of a solution. Non-functional requirements should always provide a clearly feasible objective and a corresponding measurement that allows you to determine compliance towards the requirement. Therefore, backups of all environments must be restorable within 1 hour is a correctly structured non-functional requirement. Functional requirements should also be aligned to what has been agreed upon from a deliverability standpoint, and as much as possible, scope creep should be avoided. If it is not, this could lead to an adverse effect on a project's success. Therefore, the following are two incorrectly structured requirements. As a contact center age, you are working with a financial services company based in the European Union to implement a Microsoft Power Platform solution. You compile the requirements and determine that the application must be simple and meet the following criteria. Includes a data store. Stores personally identifiable information, PII. Stores long credit card numbers. You need to ensure the requirements can be implemented. What should you do first? Option 1, provide an estimate of the implementation. Option 2, determine the priority of the requirements. Option 3, verify the solution can be delivered by using low-code tools. Option 4, consult with a legal subject matter expert on the requirements. Correct answers: consult with a legal subject matter expert on the requirements. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of determining the feasibility of a requirement before it is implemented. Depending on the type of organization, an organization might face legal or regulatory challenges when implementing certain user requirements. For example, organizations located within the European Union are subject to the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR), and organizations working with credit card information need to comply with the Payment Card Industry (PCI) Data Security Standard (DSS). Each of these could make implementing specific requirements, such as storing credit card numbers or PII, more difficult and require additional checks or justifications. It is important that these checks are performed as early as possible with an appropriate legal expert. Providing an estimate for a requirement that has not been validated first for potential legal or regulatory issues is an inefficient use of time because the requirement might have to be revised or abandoned. Determining the priority of a requirement that has not been validated first for potential legal or regulatory issues is also an inefficient use of time because the requirement may have to be revised or abandoned. Because the requirements in the scenario specify that a simple app and data store are required, the low-code capabilities of Microsoft Power Platform, such as Power Apps and Dataverse, can be used. However, until the regulatory or legal aspects are discussed, it is possible these tools cannot be used. In addition, performing this analysis before validating for potential legal or regulatory issues is inefficient because the requirements may have to be revised or abandoned. You are working with a non-profit organization to implement a solution that uses Microsoft technologies. The solution will handle the non-profit's daily business. The main area of focus is managing cases of donations and volunteers. You need to recommend the approach for the implementation. The solution must minimize development time and cost. Which two approaches should you recommend? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Option 1, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Sales. Option 2, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Customer Service. Option 3, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Nonprofit Accelerator. Option 4, Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. Option 5, Custom Power Apps Solution. Correct answers: Microsoft Dynamics 365 Nonprofit Accelerator, Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of the Microsoft offerings for nonprofit organizations. Dynamics 365 Nonprofit Accelerator and Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit are specifically for nonprofits, and both satisfy the requirements in the scenario. Both sales and customer service can implement some of the requirements, but they would require a significant amount of customization to meet the organization's needs. Building a custom Power Apps solution is possible, but it would require a significant amount of customization and project management overhead. You are working with a retail customer who plans to retire an existing application. The customer will go live on their new Microsoft Power Platform app. During final user acceptance testing, UAT, one team reports that a core functionality they use is missing from the new app. You need to ensure the go-live proceeds successfully as planned. What should you do? Option 1, migrate all users to a dummy production environment. Option 2, run the existing app and new app in parallel until issues are resolved. Option 3, prioritize the data migration efforts for important data. Option 4, automate all go-live activities to reduce risks. Correct answers: run the existing app and new app in parallel until issues are resolved. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of the factors that could affect go-live readiness and the approaches that are available to address potential problems. When there are issues before a go-live, you can run an older system and new app in parallel as a good solution, although it is not ideal. It ensures you can still go live and meet the needs of your users, but it will give you time to slowly move groups of users over as issues with the new app are addressed. Moving users to a dummy production environment is an approach that is used only to resolve potential access issues before a go-live. Prioritizing the data migration activities by importance of the data will not address the missing core functionality in the new app from the scenario. This approach ignores the team's concerns and assumes the go-live will proceed unchanged. Automating go-live activities to reduce effort and risks will not address the missing core functionality in the new app. This approach will only optimize the automation of the go-live, but it will not accommodate or plan for the missing functionality. You are working with an online retailer who is designing a new Microsoft Power Apps app. The retailer needs to integrate the app into an e-commerce payment platform by using Microsoft Dataverse Web API. The integration must first identify whether a customer exists based on their email address. If the email address is found, the customer will be updated in the payment platform. If the email address is not found, a new customer record will be created from the details provided in Dataverse. You need to identify the appropriate operation to meet the requirements. What should you use? Option 1, execute. Option 2, query. Option 3, update. Option 4, upsert. Correct answers: upsert. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of designing integrations between Microsoft Power Platform and other systems by using the available Dataverse services. The upsert operation is the simplest integration approach because it combines the create and update operations into a single action. In the scenario, the upsert operation will check whether a record with a specific email address already exists in Dataverse. If the record exists, the operation updates the existing record with the provided data. If the record doesn't exist, the operation creates a new record. The execute operation is used to trigger and execute workflows programmatically as part of an integration. The workflows themselves would require additional steps to meet the requirements. The update operation meets only half of the requirements because it can only modify existing records within a Dataverse table, not create them. The query operation is used to retrieve data from Dataverse tables using a query language. It is not used to create or update records. You are working with an organization in the energy services sector to implement a case management application. You need to recommend the appropriate way to implement the application in Microsoft Power Platform. The recommendation must minimize the time required to build and deploy the application. What should you recommend? Option 1, build a custom Microsoft Power Apps app. Option 2, implement Dynamics 365 customer service. Option 3, use an industry accelerator. Option 4, use a third-party connector. Correct answers: implement Dynamics 365 customer service. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of Dynamics 365 applications and how the applications can be used to meet requirements more straightforwardly. Customer service empowers support staff to provide enhanced assistance to their customers. It provides organizations with everything needed to manage the end-to-end life cycle of support requests. Based on the organization's requirements in the scenario, customer service will provide a faster and more optimal route for deployment. Although it would be viable to create a custom application or use a third-party connector to meet the organization's requirements, these options will take longer to build and deploy. A solution architect should strive to ensure the most optimal and fastest way to business value that using an off-the-shelf solution such as Dynamics 365 can bring. The various industry accelerators available for the automotive, healthcare, nonprofit, and other industries provide a potential way to faster deployment for organizations working in these areas. Because there is no available accelerator for the energy services industry, this option is not practical to ensure a reduced time to value. You complete a Microsoft Power Platform project for a company's financial services division. Members of the project team recommend your solution to colleagues in the energy services division of the company. You are invited to a meeting at short notice with stakeholders from that division. You need to familiarize yourself with the work of the energy services division before the meeting. What should you do? Option 1, contact the stakeholders. Option 2, consult the division's website. Option 3, review the completed solution's blueprint. Correct answers: consult the division's website. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of identifying key information regarding a new or unfamiliar organization. Using a division's website as a research tool before any introductory meeting will allow you to discover key information, such as the work the division is doing, its clients, and the key individuals who work there. Attempting to contact the new stakeholders at short notice would be challenging and not necessary if all you need to do is get answers to questions that could be easily obtained elsewhere. Reviewing the solution blueprint for the project would only be useful in familiarizing yourself with the solution design. It will not provide any useful or meaningful information regarding the division's business activities, its key individuals, and other organizational metrics. You design a model-driven app for a wealth management company. New clients are added to the contact table in Microsoft Dataverse. The company wants to onboard clients first by validating their identity and then by sending them a welcome email. You need to choose the appropriate capability for this workflow. What should you use? Option 1, a business rule. Option 2, a business process flow. Option 3, a roll-up column. Option 4, a scheduled cloud flow. Option 5, a virtual table. Correct answers: a business process flow. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of designing a data-driven process flow within Dataverse and the different orchestration capabilities available to support the scenario. A business process flow is a native Dataverse capability for orchestrating data entry. A business process flow can provide a streamlined guide for people using model-driven app forms to lead them through the stages and steps of a process. In this scenario, the business process flow will be bound to the contact form and include the necessary client onboarding stages. The business process flow can also trigger a workflow or instant cloud flow to distribute the welcome email. Business rules are designed to provide a simple interface for form rules such as setting a column value or hiding a field. Business rules are not capable of running a multi-step process or distributing an email. A scheduled cloud flow in Power Automate performs one or more tasks, such as sending a report in email, on a specified schedule. A scheduled cloud flow can distribute a welcome email on a schedule outside of the model-driven app. It, however, would not be on demand as part of the client onboarding process, nor would it facilitate the actual steps and stages used to onboard the client. A virtual table is a custom table in Dataverse that can contain data from an external data source such as a SQL database. Virtual tables appear in an app to users as regular table rows, but they do not orchestrate any processes or workflow that would satisfy the onboarding requirements. A roll-up column contains an aggregate value computed over the rows related to a specified record. This special type of Dataverse column does not orchestrate any processes or workflow that would satisfy the onboarding requirements. You meet with a new customer and complete the initial discovery conversation. You now understand the customer's business processes and what the project team can and cannot deliver. You need to draft a project plan summary for the project. Which two parameters can you define in the summary based on the initial discovery conversation? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Option 1, the scope. Option 2, the budget. Option 3, the project risks. Option 4, the high-level architecture. Option 5, the problem statement. Correct answers: the scope of the problem statement. Explanation: this item tests the candidate's knowledge of performing an initial customer discovery, identifying and documenting an organization's existing business processes, and drafting a project plan summary. The solution architect understands the existing business processes from the initial discovery meeting and therefore can begin to document the problem statement and business objectives in the draft project plan summary. The architect also understands what will be in scope for the project and what can and cannot be delivered by the project team. There is no indication that any project risks were identified as part of the initial discovery meeting. Risks would be added to the project plan summary as the project progresses. The high-level architecture refers to the overall structure and design of the solution at a high level. This is a project deliverable rather than an asset in the project plan summary. There is no indication in this scenario that the solution architect knows the anticipated costs or budget for the project after the initial meeting. Therefore, it is not currently part of the project plan summary.